Life Stories.
At last, we're ready to go. The meeting's being streamed live on YouTube, and it's going out on Zoom. So thank you for being patient. We do welcome you to another Monday night live story on Life Stories Worldwide. It's great to have you with us. Please let your friends know that it's live on Zoom and on YouTube. Sorry we can't be on Facebook tonight, but please let people know that they can get it on YouTube or on Zoom. So tonight we are going back to America. Tonight we're going to California, to Atlanta. Last week we were in California, but tonight we're going to be in Atlanta, Georgia. And tonight we have a speaker called Bob Behrman. Bob is a U.S. veteran in the Marine Corps. He served several duties in Vietnam, and he got through that experience, and he has some stories to share about Vietnam. Then he graduated from university and followed a career in information technology and joining several companies. And he will probably share how God has led him. So I want to hand over to Bob now. Bob, we hand over to you. If John can spotlight you, we'll get you on now. Thank you, Bob. Okay.
You need to unmute, Bob.
Okay.
You need to unmute, Bob.
Unmute. Bob, you need to unmute your unmute button. There you go. All you go. Always go. No, you've done it again. You muted again. No, you're still muted.
Oh, no, sorry. Sorry, I know it's my fault.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm muted now.
You're right.
It's my fault.
Yeah,
It's my
okay.
fault. So sorry.
The button wasn't working. I never had that trouble before. Well, anyway, thank you so much for inviting me here to give a testimony, and it's such a pleasure to be here. So I like to start my testimony off with a scripture that I relate to. It's Psalm 34, and it goes like this: I will extol the Lord at all times. His praise will always be on my lips. I will glory in the Lord. Let the afflicted hear and rejoice. Glorify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant, and their faces are never covered with shame. This poor man, this poor man called, and the Lord heard him. He saved him out of all his troubles. And I praise God. That is exactly what he'll do for me, what he did for me, and what he'll do for anybody. So what I wanted to just start off with is to say that when I was a child, maybe 9 or 10 years old, I had been introduced to something called the Apostles' Creed, and you can look that up on Google. It's a really good summary of what Christians believe, and I believe that. And I also got a hold of a scripture in my heart. It basically said, you know, the Lord said that he is the way, the truth, and the life. And anybody who believes in him, even if they die, they'll live. And I don't know why a 9-year-old would grab onto that, but I believe that, and it was good. So with that in mind, I bring that up because later on you're going to find out that, I just kind of drifted away from that, drifted away from that belief, although it was very dear and near to me as a child. But adolescence happened, and the world's influence came into play for me. The world has a different set of rules than Christians. And when you're a young man, you can be caught up into that, not going to church, not really paying attention to God. And as things happen, I joined the Marine Corps. I was 17 years old when I joined the Marine Corps. I was very well trained. I joined a outfit called 3rd Recon Battalion, and our job was to go behind enemy lines and see what was going on, among other things. But before I got to Vietnam, not only did I go through basic training, but in addition, we had special training in the Philippines to how to live off the jungle, and we studied. It was a raider company. We studied how to make raids and live off the jungle, and it really prepared me for Vietnam. And at the end of that period of time in the Philippines, when I went over to Vietnam, very well prepared. I mean, I was very savvy on living off the jungle, very savvy on all the equipment that was at our disposal. And there I went to Vietnam and did what many young men do, and that is engage in warfare. We do what our superiors tell us. And during the period in Vietnam, I went and engaged the enemy. We had plenty of skirmishes, endured what war brings on you. The Lord was with me then, and he protected me. I had, you're there at 19 years old, you go into the war, and maturity comes on you pretty quick when the first bullets start passing your head, whizzing by, and you see mortars raining down on top of you, rockets firing. It's like I go from a boy and I quickly go to... To maturity. It's like, okay, I was well trained for this, and we did that. We engaged and we did very well. My outfit. We used to go behind the lines as well. And when you're behind the lines, you're in the backyard of the enemy. So what that means is you're very vulnerable. The people see you. The people know you're there. Eventually, you try to sneak in, and more times than not, we get caught and have to fight our way out or get evacuated. And this this kind of came with the territory. It was just what we did every day. But one day, what's very meaningful to my testimony, I was assigned to a 5-man patrol, and we went into a rice paddy, and we were supposed to go in the dark. And we went in the dark, and our mission was to observe what the enemy had, because we were going to dig in, hide ourselves, and a battalion of Marines would be dropping on the other side of this village, and they were going to press the enemy towards us so we could see, observe what they had and how many, and the strengths of the weapons they had, all that kind of thing. So we start the mission. It's nighttime. It happened that there was a full moon. This was August 1965. There was a full moon out, and it was like a big spotlight, which served us well as far as being able to see where we're going. So we get to the point where it's supposed to set up, and we get a big surprise. The surprise is the rice paddy is up to our waist with water. I guess they thought it was going to be dry, but it was not. So we're sloshing through this water, trying to find a place to set up, and we get spotted by the enemy. So there's 5 of us there, and we were told by intelligence there would be about a battalion of the enemy in this village. Now, this village was a crescent-shaped village in the tree line, and maybe this crescent-shaped village was 3/4 to a mile wide. And we're outside in the rice paddy here. We get spotted, and the enemy starts shooting at us. And it turns out that the rice paddy also had a full harvest growth of rice. So we scurried into the rice growth to hide ourselves, but they had spotted us, had shot at us. So they must have somehow got the message back to their headquarters, because all of a sudden we started hearing drums communicating. On one side of the crescent in the village was boom, boom, boom. And then it would be answered from the other side of the crescent, boom, boom, boom. And they would signaling each other. And this was pretty wild. We had no idea what we knew we were caught. We knew that they knew we were there, and we knew that they were going to send people out. And sure enough, they did send people out, and we could hear the voices yelling. They were yelling commands at each other as we huddled in the rice paddy. And we can notice that they had us surrounded, and it didn't. We knew we're 5 of us, a battalion of them. We pretty much felt, from my perspective, it was over. We were going to die right there. We're going to fight our way out to the best we can, but 5 against big numbers is not going to work. So sort of a miracle happened. The voices came closer and closer to our position, although they didn't know where I was. It was so close that I thought that I was going to have to take out one of the enemy with a knife, basically like a crocodile, jump in and bring him under the water and do him in, because we did not want to shoot our weapons until the last moments to see the whites of the eyes, as they say. Well, about the time when he was close enough for me to launch, he stopped, and we could hear them talking, and the voices started receding from our position. And during this time, we were kind of at peace. We kind of knew that this was it. And I called out on the Lord. They call that foxhole conversion or what have you. I called out on the Lord, and I said, Lord, if you get me out of this, I'll serve you. I'll be your man. I'll serve you, because there just seems no way out. Well, a peace came over all 5 of us, and I think we didn't see an angel, but I think there was an angels working on our behalf, because a peace was on us, and we, five of us, kind of knew. This is my perspective now. Kind of knew that a certain direction we should take, and we started moving in that direction. And that direction was towards the village where the enemy was camped. That is not in the natural. You wouldn't do that, but we had a peace about us, and we did that. And at a certain point in time, we kind of sort of woke up out of the trance and realized we better go a different direction, and we went a different direction. Now, it wasn't like we were in a trance, we knew what we were doing, but there was this knowing that we should be heading this way, or then head out the other way. And we did, and we rendezvoused out and caught up with our unit once again. And I thought that was a miracle. There was no way that we could have survived that, but we did, by the grace of God. So we come out, and I'm, really thinking that this had to be God. Now, you would think, with that being that close to death, that close to being over, and me calling out to God, that I would serve God like I called out to him and said I would. Well, it didn't take too long where that promise drifted away from me. I wanted to serve God at that time, but I really didn't know how. I didn't.
Life Stories. Life Stories.
Even understand what that even meant. How do you serve God? I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a background to really understand what that even meant. And so sure enough, I just drifted back into my old ways. Sounds crazy, but it's not crazy when you don't understand. You just don't know any better. So I got out of Vietnam. I was discharged from the service and started life as a civilian. I went to school at night, worked during the day, worked my way through university, got married, had some children, got a good job. Life seemed to be pretty good. Well, it wasn't bad. I was, not into drugs and all that kind of stuff. But this is August 65 at the Vietnam episode. Well, in August 1975, 10 years later, what a coincidence, the Lord, metaphorically speaking, came knocking on my door. And he knocked on my door through a testimony of somebody I knew. I knew this person since he was a teenager. And he gave me a testimony. I was over at his house, and he told me that Jesus came into his life, that he received Jesus. And he talked to me about, asking Jesus into your life and how Jesus helped him. Now, what his story was, that he was a policeman, and he was anxious and depressed, and he was filled with anxiety to the point where he even told his sergeant, you got to take my gun away from me because I'm going to hurt somebody. Well, that's not too good. And the way he explained to me is, I guess he is depressed sometimes and anxious at other times. And when he was anxious, he would be like, if you got scared and adrenaline shot into you, you're kind of up. And he said, well, he was up all the time. It didn't go away. And it was just nerve-wracking. He didn't know what to do. He didn't have anybody to confide in. Nobody, his sergeant told him, take a couple of days off. You're just a little shook up. But that didn't work. Well, fortunately for him, his neighbor was a Christian, and his neighbor talked to him about receiving Jesus Christ into his life. And as this fellow told me, he said he asked Jesus to come into his life. And what happened? What happened was he asked Jesus into his life, and the anxiety, the depression left him. It was like a miracle. It just gone. And now he was at peace. He wasn't having these issues anymore. And I listened to him and I heard this, and I thought it was kind of strange. Like, it was really interesting, but I didn't quite understand this. He's saying Jesus Christ came into his life and he was delivered right there on the spot. I went home that night and I was recounting all the things he was telling me. He was telling me things out of the Gospel of John. In fact, he suggested to me that I go and read the Gospel of John. He was telling me about being born again and how the Spirit of God can come upon you. How we must be born again. We must do this. But it's impossible with mankind. Man can't will himself to be born again. Only God can make you born again. This was so puzzling. So I went home and I'm thinking to myself, what happened to this guy? Is it psychosomatic? You know, I'm thinking I know something. I know nothing. I'm in the dark. I'm like a blind man in the dark, just a heathen. I didn't comprehend this. So I said, I know. He told me about the Gospel of John. I'm going to take a look at that. I'm going to check that out. So I open up a Bible I had at home, and I start reading the Gospel of John. And it, I read that, and in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And I go down there, and by the time I get done with the first chapter, I mean, I could read it, but I couldn't comprehend it. I had thoughts like, people believe this? What kind of, is this like a fairy tale? How do you believe something like this? Well, I didn't realize that, the Bible had words for people like me in my predicament, So, the Bible talks about there's none righteous, not one. There's none that understand. There's none who seek God. Well, I had long stopped seeking God. I was cold as cold can be. All have turned aside. They have altogether become unprofitable. There's none that does good. No, not one. Wow. The Bible was talking about me, and I didn't even know it. And I was on my way to hell in a handbasket and didn't have a clue. In Romans 1, we read, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth of righteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. But since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes were clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened." Man, that was me. That was describing me. My heart was dark. God had did miraculous things for me, and I was just out there, not knowing what was going on here in the spiritual realm. So I knew there's an evangelist called Billy Graham, right?
Stories.